Melissa, your sister is already engaged to your brother-in-law. Stop trying to ruin things. Mom and Dad have already bought your plane ticket. You'll stay abroad for the next few years and only return after your sister's wedding. Seeing the "we know what's best for you" expression on her parents' faces, Melissa realized she had been reborn on the very day her parents forced her to go abroad and completely give up on Benedict. In her past life, she had been persuaded to leave just like this, but unwilling to accept it, she repeatedly explained to Benedict that he should love her instead, begged her parents to reveal the truth, and pleaded for them to stop letting her sister take her place. In the end, all she earned was Benedict's even deeper disgust. Even when she was on the brink of death after a car accident, he coldly said to the nurse on the phone, "What trick is she playing now? Tell her not to ruin my wedding with Molly." And she died on the operating table, watching the globally televised grand wedding on the screen, seeing Benedict gently slip the ring onto Molly's finger, watching them receive everyone's blessings. Since fate has given her a chance to live again, she won't make the same foolish mistakes in this lifetime. "Fine, I'll leave." She reached for the plane ticket, her voice eerily calm. Seeing her agree so decisively, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin were utterly shocked. "Melissa, you really agreed to leave? Are you planning some trick to ruin your sister again?" Ruin? How ridiculous. Benedict was originally hers, but it was forcibly taken away by her parents and given to her sister over 20 years ago. When her sister Molly was diagnosed with leukemia, their parents didn't hesitate to have another child, and so she was born. Her umbilical cord blood saved her sister's life, but from then on, she lived in her sister's shadow, because Molly was frail and sickly. Their parents showered all their affection on her. From childhood to adulthood, she had given up everything: her room, her friends, even her spot in the finals. There was only one thing she refused to yield: the boy she fell in love with at first sight. The heir of the Marshall family, Benedict. Once a proud son of heaven standing atop the clouds, he was abandoned by his family in a suburban villa after a car accident on his birthday left him blind. Melissa stole the key without telling her family and would climb over the wall every day after school to keep him company. "I come here every day." In the darkness, the girl's sweet voice became Benedict's only salvation. She never revealed her name. Only tracing characters in his palm, he would grope to comb her hair, play piano for her, pressing her cold hands against his chest during thunderstorm nights. On the eve of the surgery, the young man kissed her fingertips and vowed, "Once my eyes are healed, the first person I want to see is you. When that time comes, let's be together, okay?" The surgery lasted 12 hours, but when Benedict woke up, the first person he saw was Molly. It was because Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin, upon learning that Molly also liked Benedict, secretly slipped sleeping pills into Melissa's water, causing her to sleep for a full day and night. Later, she lied under oath, claiming that the one who had been by his side all these years was Molly, thus letting Molly take the credit undeservedly. Benedict never suspected a thing. From dating to engagement, he and Molly were deeply in love. For 3 years, Melissa explained countless times that she was the one who had been with him, that she was the one he should love, but he never believed her. Until her death, Melissa looked at her biological parents before her and found them utterly ridiculous. "Before, you repeatedly tried to make me leave. Now that I've agreed, you don't believe me. Don't you think that's strange? That's not what we meant, of course. It's best if you're willing to go. You'll depart for Europe in half a month. You can use this time to pack your things and settle your affairs." Mr. Oswin. Mrs. Oswin, fearing she might change her mind, hastily added a few more reminders before leaving in high spirits. She then turned and went back to her room. The door had just closed when the phone vibrated once. It was Benedict who sent the message. 8 p.m. "Come to the Grand Hyatt, room 1808. Melissa stared at the message, her fingertips tightening slightly. In her previous life, when she received this message, she was overjoyed, thinking he was finally willing to hear her explanation. But when she arrived, she realized he had deliberately called her to witness him in bed with Molly, just to make her give up. Back then, she broke down in tears, while he coldly said, "See it clearly now, the only one I like is your sister." Looking back now, it's truly laughable. She took a deep breath and replied, "Okay." At 8 o'clock in the evening, she arrived at the hotel on time. The door to room 1808 was left open. Benedict held Molly in his arms, both of them naked. Used condoms were scattered around, and the room was filled with lust. Seeing Melissa standing outside, Molly couldn't help but let out a scream. Benedict lowered his head, placing delicate kisses along her collarbone, his voice tender and deep. "Don't be afraid. I called her here on purpose, to let her know it's you I love. That way, she won't harbor any inappropriate thoughts about me and will understand I can only ever be her brother-in-law. Living a second life and witnessing this scene again. Her heart still felt as if it had been brutally stabbed, bleeding and agonizing beyond endurance, but she had to get used to it, because from now on, Benedict would only be her brother-in-law. After what felt like an eternity, she released her hand, now marked with nail imprints from gripping too tightly, and saw the fully dressed Benedict standing before her. See it clearly now, the only one I love is your sister, remember your place, I am your brother-in-law, never dare to do such shameless things again. Melissa's face had completely lost all expression. I see clearly now, and I understand. Benedict paused for a moment, seemingly surprised by her calmness. After a while, he picked up an invitation from the bedside and handed it to her. Next month is my wedding with Molly. I hope you can come. Melissa took the invitation. I'll be there on time. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness together. Benedict stared at her face, his brows slightly furrowed. For some reason, today's Melissa was uncharacteristically well behaved, but he didn't ask anything, holding Molly's hand as they left the hotel, Melissa dragging her heavy steps behind them. She lowered her head, lost in thought, when suddenly she heard a scream beside her. The next second, the giant signboard above came crashing straight down. Benedict instinctively shielded Molly as they stepped back, narrowly escaping disaster. Only Melissa remained in place, struck and covered in blood, collapsing to the ground. Waves of pain surged through her, tearing at her nerves, leaving her trembling uncontrollably in the pool of blood. Large teardrops welled up, blurring her vision as she watched him shielding Molly, then closed her eyes. The boy who once had only her in his heart would never return, and she, at last, could completely let go. When she opened her eyes again, Melissa found herself in a hospital. The nurse was changing the dressing and, seeing her awake, breathed a sigh of relief. You've been unconscious for 2 days. It's a relief you're finally awake. How do you feel? Your sister fainted from shock the day she brought you to the hospital. Your parents and brother-in-law are all in the next room taking care of her. Should I call them over? Hearing this, Melissa lightly fluttered her eyelashes and shook her head. No need, they wouldn't want to see me, and I don't want to see them either. A flicker of sympathy crossed the nurse's eyes before she turned and left the ward. Sigh, they're clearly biological sisters, yet the younger one hemorrhaged badly and ended up in the ICU, while her family didn't even ask about her, only focusing on comforting the frightened older sister. They haven't visited even once these past 2 days. I heard her brother-in-law is the Marshall family's group president. The older sister married into wealth. So neglecting the younger one is hardly surprising, but her brother-in-law is truly devoted. He's been staying by the older sister's side, personally feeding her medicine and porridge, even hiring a retired psychological expert to help her work through her trauma. Gifts to cheer her up keep flowing into the ward like a stream. The hushed remarks of the two clearly reached Melissa's ears. She remained expressionless from start to finish. Such situations had long become familiar to her. In the afternoon, the doctor happened to call her in for a follow-up examination. With no one to accompany her, she had to muster her strength alone to get out of bed despite her frail condition. As she passed by the neighboring ward, Melissa saw her parents and Benedict gathered around Molly, fussing over her with concern. Mr. Oswin tucked the blanket around her. Mrs. Oswin peeled grapes and fed them to her. A sweet smile spread across her face as she spoke in a coquettish tone. Dad. Mom. You've been taking care of me all these days and haven't visited my sister. Now that I'm full, why don't you take this remaining bowl of fish soup to her? She's badly injured and surely needs nourishment. Oh, don't worry about her. She can survive anywhere. This soup took your mother all night to prepare. Giving it to her would just be a waste. Mr. Oswin refused without a second thought. Mrs. Oswin also nodded in agreement. Benedict gently adjusted her bangs, his eyes overflowing with tenderness. Molly, the doctor said you fainted due to excessive worry. Melissa has always been cold-hearted and indifferent, never caring about your sisterly bond. She even dared to covet your brother-in-law. Why bother with her anymore? Hearing his icy remark, Melissa let out a self-mocking laugh, her smile tinged with sorrow. She was born with a seafood allergy and couldn't eat any aquatic products, but Molly loves fish, shrimp, and crab the most. So seafood is served at every meal at home. She couldn't eat any of it either, only plain vegetables and white rice, and was even scolded by her parents for being picky. Molly acted particularly caring towards this younger sister in front of others, but whenever they were alone, she would constantly mock and sneer, occasionally even resorting to physical violence. Right after hitting her, Molly would then cry and go tattle, twisting the truth. Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin didn't even ask and punished Melissa to kneel in the rain all night. From then on, she kept her distance from this sister, yielding to Molly in everything she wanted. In her previous life, Benedict was the only one she wanted to fight for, yet it ended in such a tragic outcome. In this life, she only wanted to live her own life well, no striving, no fighting, and no more love. Melissa finished the examination alone and went to collect the medicine with the prescription. The pharmacy was in the building behind, requiring her to walk through a garden. Passing by the fountain, she was stopped by someone, and when she looked up, she saw Molly. "Oh, you're up and about already. Seems your injuries weren't that serious after all. Let me tell you, Mom and Dad are both on my side. Even if you tell Benedict that it was you who stayed with him back then, that he truly loved you, it's useless. You might as well save your breath." Facing her provocation, Melissa responded with remarkable calm. "Don't worry. From now on I won't have feelings for Benedict anymore. I'll let you have everything you want." Molly had grown accustomed to this submissive attitude of hers, her eyes gleaming with increasing satisfaction. "Let me? Do I need you to let me? I've had everything I wanted since childhood. You're only fit to pick up what I discard. You'll never outdo me in this lifetime." Melissa ignored her provocation and turned sideways to leave. Seeing her attempt to flee, Molly frowned and was about to continue berating her when a familiar figure suddenly appeared in the corridor. Seizing the opportunity, she grabbed Melissa's hand and dragged her into the fountain pool. Neither of them could swim. Flailing desperately in the pool and screaming for help, Melissa's wounds split open again. Her blood staining the pool red, icy water flooded her nostrils, making her cough violently. The pain left her too weak to struggle. Her body sinking straight downward. As she was about to suffocate, she saw Benedict rushing over and jumping into the water. He swam past her without a glance or offering help, carrying Molly straight to the shore. Molly threw herself into his arms with reddened eyes, looking at Melissa still drowning in the water. Deliberately feigning anxiety, "Melissa accidentally pushed me into the water. Benedict, you know she's my only sister. Could you please save her?" Hearing her words and looking at the person in the pool, Benedict's expression turned as cold as frost. "Molly, stop speaking up for her. She must have deliberately tried to kill you, and then jumped in herself to play the victim. Since she refuses to change her ways, let her sober up properly in the water." Every word struck Melissa's ears, piercing her heart deeply. Her face turned purple from suffocation, her ears buzzed, and all her strength was exhausted. Consciousness grew increasingly hazy, and the scene before her eyes gradually blurred. She watched helplessly as Benedict carried Molly away before losing consciousness. After what felt like an eternity, Melissa was awakened by a chilling gust of wind. Shivering as she came to, she saw Mr. Oswin, Mrs. Oswin standing before her, their faces grim. "You've got some nerve, daring to push Molly into the water. Are you trying to kill her and take her place to be with Benedict? Let me tell you, as long as your father and I are alive, we will never let such a thing happen. From head to toe, you're not half the woman your sister is, utterly unworthy of Benedict. I advise you to face reality and stop deluding yourself." Hearing their scolding, Melissa felt a chill run through her body, her eyes gradually filling with despair. All those years of pent-up pain finally erupted completely. "I'm not worthy, but is she? If it weren't for your false testimonies and deceit, Benedict would never have glanced at her in his entire life. You stole what rightfully belonged to me and gave it to her. Don't you feel any shame?" Seeing her dare to talk back, Mrs. Oswin turned red with anger. Mr. Oswin raised his hand and slapped her across the face. "You ungrateful child, we are your birth parents. Your life and everything you have were given by us. We can take it back whenever we want, or give it to your sister. Who are you to object? If you dare reveal the truth again, just wait and see what we'll." Before the words had fully left his mouth, the ward door was abruptly pushed open. Benedict walked in with a frown. "The truth? What truth?" Seeing him burst in suddenly, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin were both startled, stammering as they spoke. "We're here to teach this unfilial daughter a lesson, to make her confess why she pushed Molly into the water. Yes, yes. She refuses to admit it even if beaten to death. Your aunt and I are furious, and we don't know how to punish her." The two exchanged glances and tacitly changed the subject. Benedict didn't think much of it, his gaze toward Melissa turning ice-cold. "Since she still refuses to admit her mistake, lock her in the morgue. She'll be released only when she acknowledges her fault." Mr. Oswin, Mrs. Oswin both thought this was an excellent idea and immediately summoned the bodyguards to confine her. Melissa covered her swollen face, her eyes hollow and numb. She knew resistance would only invite harsher punishment, so she offered no struggle, letting them drag her away, shrouded in the eerie, bone-chilling cold of the morgue. She could only hug her shivering body tightly, trembling incessantly. Suddenly, Melissa recalled the days when she and Benedict huddled together for warmth during stormy nights filled with thunder and lightning at the old Marshall family mansion. Back then, he would take off his coat to drape over her, hold her hand tightly and pull her into his embrace, repeating over and over, "I'm here, don't be afraid." Sweet memories and cold reality intertwined, tormenting her nerves. As time passed minute by minute, her consciousness grew increasingly unclear under the pangs of hunger and cold, until she saw the door open. Benedict walked in with a cold expression, his gaze sharp to the extreme, after being locked up for a full day and night. "Have you realized your mistake?" "I was wrong, utterly wrong." Melissa huddled her body, barely managing to force out a hoarse tone from her throat in response to him. Seeing the satisfied look on his face, she staggered to her feet and left, murmuring in her heart, she was wrong to believe his promise of staying together, wrong to have fallen for him. After being discharged from the hospital, Melissa returned home and cleared out everything related to Benedict. Diaries and love letters written in her youth, secretly collected photos of him, gifts she wanted to give him, surprises she had prepared for him. Originally, she had planned to share these stories of her unrequited love with him once they were together. But now she knew that there would never be a chance between them, and these things would no longer serve any purpose. She threw them all away, and as she turned around, she happened to bump into Molly, who had just been brought back by Benedict. He glanced at the trash can, and when his gaze returned to her, it remained cold and indifferent. Molly also noticed these things and deliberately held his arm, smiling coquettishly. "Benedict, it seems Melissa has really learned her lesson this time and won't bother you anymore. After all, she's my own sister, don't always give her the cold shoulder." Benedict looked indifferently at Melissa. "I'm always this cold to people I dislike, because I simply can't muster a pleasant expression for them." Melissa listened quietly, saying nothing. She took a light breath, swallowed those unspeakable emotions, and returned to her room. The next day was Molly's birthday banquet. The hall was filled with guests, all gathered together and buzzing with conversation. Master Benedict's birthday banquet for his fiancée is truly grand and spectacular. I heard these flowers were airlifted from Europe this morning. And later there will be fireworks lasting 3 days and nights to celebrate. The jewelry Miss Oswin is wearing is said to be worth hundreds of millions. Master Benedict personally bid for it at Sotheby's, to make his beloved happy. Master Benedict has truly spared no effort. Marrying Master Benedict is such a blessing for Miss Oswin, and the Oswin family will soar to new heights because of it. It's just a shame there's still Melissa at home. A ticking time bomb who's always coveting her sister's fiancé. How shameless, exactly. How is it that Melissa, despite being sisters, falls short of Miss Oswin in every way? It's bad enough that her looks and personality are inferior, but she even clings shamelessly to Master Benedict. Her morals are completely twisted. If I had such a disgraceful daughter, I'd want to kick her out of the house. Mr. and Mrs. Oswin are far too kind-hearted. Hearing these rumors, Melissa felt a dead silence in her heart. Without a ripple, she sat in the corner like an invisible person, not wanting to attract anyone's attention. Not far away, Mr. Oswin, Mrs. Oswin and Benedict all gathered around Molly, surrounding her like stars around the moon. They would straighten her dress, shield her from toasts, light her birthday candles, and sing the birthday song for her with smiles. Watching their joyful scene, Melissa recalled how on her past birthdays, Molly would always find excuses to take their parents away, leaving her alone at home to blow out candles and celebrate by herself. During those years with Benedict, having him by her side to make wishes and eat cake, receiving gifts from him, she thought she would never feel lonely again. But the brief care and warmth she once had were now completely taken away from her, and she would no longer linger in nostalgia. Amidst a lively and festive atmosphere, Molly closed her eyes to make a wish, and everyone presented their gifts one after another. She unwrapped each gift one by one, from luxury handbags to all kinds of exquisite jewelry, and the smile on her face never faded. The last 2 gifts were prepared by Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin and Benedict, which caused a huge uproar as soon as they were announced. After much deliberation, my wife and I have decided to let Molly become the successor of the Oswin family group, inheriting all the assets of the Oswin family. The gift I am giving to Molly is 50% of the shares in the Marshall family group. as well as the Marshall family heirloom wedding ring. My grandmother once told me that any couple who wears this pair of rings will surely support each other through thick and thin and grow old together. Molly, you are the only person I want to marry in this lifetime. Thank you for agreeing to be my wife. Under the gaze of the crowd, Benedict personally slipped the ring onto Molly's finger, pulled her into an embrace, and kissed her. The entire hall erupted in a wave of cheers, with everyone clapping, screaming, and offering their blessings. Melissa watched from afar, her heart heavy and suffocated. She clenched her fists tightly, wanting to leave, but was stopped by Molly's call. Melissa, where's my gift? When are you going to give it to me? Instantly, everyone's gaze fell upon Melissa. She paused mid-step, took out the long-prepared gift from her bag, and handed it over. Molly unwrapped it with a smile, just about to make some sarcastic remarks. Beside her, Benedict froze, his gaze locked onto Melissa's raised hand. Why do you have this bracelet? Melissa looked up at the sound of his voice, meeting his incredulous stare as she instinctively touched the bracelet. During the time Benedict was blind, she knew he couldn't see, yet she still dressed up meticulously to visit him. Back then, she would often wear this bracelet, and every time he held her hand, he would feel it and ask her what gemstones were embedded in it. Seeing her remain silent, Benedict suddenly grabbed her wrist, his tone urgent. Speak, why do you have this bracelet? Who exactly are you? Melissa hadn't expected that Benedict wouldn't recognize her, yet he recognized the bracelet. A tumult of complex emotions churned within her as she was about to speak, but Molly cut her off. Melissa, why did you take my bracelet without my permission? With that, Molly stepped forward to snatch the bracelet, her sharp nails leaving several bloody scratches on the back of Melissa's hand. Melissa let out a pained grunt and tried to pull her hand away forcefully, but Molly took advantage of the moment to fall backward. Witnessing this scene, Benedict's expression changed abruptly. Instinctively, he pulled Molly into his arms, his gaze toward Melissa turning utterly dark. So that's how it is. I thought, so you stole Molly's bracelet, and when exposed, you lashed out at Molly in a fit of rage. Melissa, you're truly disgusting. Seeing how he didn't even give her a chance to explain and immediately believed Molly's words, Melissa felt a chill run through her body. She raised her bleeding hand, her voice filled with unmistakable despair and pain. Since you remember this bracelet, haven't you noticed that after regaining your sight, you've never seen Molly wearing it? Because she doesn't even know this bracelet exists, and she's not the one you think she is. Melissa's heart-wrenching words were cut short as Mr. Oswin raised his hand and slapped her across the face. Her vision went black, and her body uncontrollably collapsed toward the champagne tower. Hundreds of cups rained down upon her, drenching her completely. She collapsed heavily to the ground, her body bruised and bleeding from the impacts, the pain bringing tears to her eyes. Mrs. Oswin walked up to her with a grim expression, pouring the red wine in her hand directly onto the girl's face, her voice icy and stern. Molly didn't wear it because the bracelet was accidentally damaged and sent for repairs. The butler just retrieved it today, and you took advantage of our absence to secretly put it on, even daring to claim it as your own. You can make a scene at home all you want, but today is your sister's birthday. Causing such a spectacle in public has completely humiliated our Oswin family. This was your grandmother's most treasured jewelry during her lifetime, left specifically for her beloved Molly. How could it possibly belong to you? Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin took turns reinforcing each other's words, instantly convincing Benedict that their version was the truth. He comforted the inconsolably sobbing, utterly wronged Molly, wiping the tear stains from her face. Then he walked over and knelt beside Melissa. Lifting her bruised wrist, he took off the bracelet, wiped away the bloodstains with a handkerchief, and placed it on Molly's wrist, his face filled with tenderness. Molly, this bracelet carries your grandmother's love for you and the memories of our 5 years together. I won't let anyone tarnish it. After firmly uttering these words, he turned his gaze to Mr. Oswin, his tone icy. Uncle Oswin, for stealing family property and misconduct. Shouldn't the Oswin family enforce its discipline? Mr. Oswin nodded repeatedly and immediately ordered someone to fetch a whip, which he took into his own hands. According to the family rules, Melissa should receive 50 lashes for today's mistake. I, Oswin, have failed in teaching my daughter properly, disturbing everyone's enjoyment. Today, I will publicly discipline this unfilial daughter to uphold the family's honor. With that, he raised the whip and struck down fiercely, with a whoosh. Melissa's back was torn open, and her whole body trembled uncontrollably. A piercing scream echoed through the hall as blood gushed out, quickly staining her entire body crimson. The pain blurred her consciousness. forcing broken moans of agony from her throat. I didn't steal anything, that bracelet was always mine, it was a gift from Grandma. Watching her struggle in the pool of blood, Benedict showed no mercy, instead covering Molly's eyes and leading her away. Watching the two figures gradually fade into the distance, Melissa closed her blood-red eyes, she clenched her lips, stained with blood and tears, enduring the pain in silence. After the punishment, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin left without even glancing at her. The guests and waiters in the hall sneered and departed one after another. Paying her no attention, she lay battered and bruised on the cold floor. The lights having gone out, only endless darkness remained, completely enveloping her. It wasn't until the early hours of the next morning that Melissa regained some strength and went alone to the hospital to treat her wounds. The doctor was somewhat shocked to see the horrifying injuries on her body. Spending a full 3 hours cleaning and bandaging them, she endured the pain until cold sweat drenched her, breaking several nails before finally making it through. After 2 days of recuperation in the hospital, the wounds slowly scabbed over. During this time, Molly sent numerous provocative messages every day. Mom and Dad have agreed to turn your room into a nursery. It'll be where Benedict and I stay with our child when we visit. When are you moving your junk out? Benedict accompanied me to pick out wedding dresses today. I thought all these were nice, so he bought them all for me. My feet hurt from trying on shoes, and he felt so distressed that he even massaged my legs for me. Looking at the photo where Benedict gazed affectionately at Molly, Melissa felt nothing but numbness in her eyes. She didn't reply to any of the messages. After recovering from her injuries and returning home, she immediately started packing her belongings. Apart from some essential documents and items, she threw everything else away, keeping not a single piece. The butler saw this and came over nervously to offer a reminder. Second miss. The eldest miss meant for you to move to the basement. Although the lighting isn't good there, the space is ample, there's no need for you to throw these things away. Melissa looked at the empty room, her voice indifferent. No need, these things won't be of use anymore. Throw them all away, I'm going abroad soon and won't be coming back. The butler froze, a flicker of surprise flashing in his eyes. Are you leaving and not coming back? Before the words were fully spoken, Benedict pushed open the hall door and entered. Who's leaving and not coming back? The butler was about to reply, when Molly emerged from the bedroom. Why are you so early? I haven't finished my makeup yet. Benedict ignored the two of them and walked straight to her, playfully tweaking her nose. It's fine, take your time, I can wait. I can never get my eyebrows right. You're so skilled, help me with them, won't you? The two returned to their room chatting and laughing, then closed the door behind them. Melissa also withdrew her gaze and silently zipped up the packed suitcase. For the entire day that followed, Benedict and Molly stuck together, being extremely affectionate. He would personally cook breakfast for her, hold her in his arms, and feed her bite by bite. He would accompany her to watch movies, explaining the hidden Easter eggs to her. He would pull her into an embrace on the balcony, kissing her passionately, letting her lipstick smudge on his collar, his eyes brimming with tenderness. The household staff who witnessed it couldn't help but gossip in private. Miss and young Master Benedict are so deeply in love. Though they haven't registered their marriage yet, they're already like a newlywed couple, stuck together like glue, inseparable for even a moment. The young lady grew up being spoiled, developing a willful temper. Now that she's married to the devoted young Master Benedict, she's bound to be even more indulged and unruly. What a fortunate fate indeed. Ah, poor second young lady, neglected by the family since childhood was bad enough. But to fall for someone who turns out to be her sister's husband, such misfortune between blood sisters. Listening to their sighs through the door, Melissa lowered her eyes. In the past, she too had questioned the heavens countless times. Why was she treated this way? After dying once, she came to understand a truth. What she had to fight for was never truly hers. This applied to family ties, and love was no exception, so she no longer clung to them, wanting only to break free and never sink into the mire again. At dinner time, the servant informed them that Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin had reserved a private room at the mid-levels hotel and asked them to dine out. Melissa initially wanted to find an excuse to refuse, but was Molly forcibly pulled into the back seat. Along the way, no matter what Molly said, Benedict would immediately chime in. Benedict, after we get married, let's go to Europe for our honeymoon, okay? I want to see the northern lights and attend a fashion show. You'll have to take lots of photos of me then. And I'll set your phone, computer, and tablet wallpapers to my selfies. No repeats allowed. Sure, I'll take some photography classes to improve my skills by then. I'll definitely capture you at your most beautiful and print those photos to hang all over my office and study. That way, whenever I miss you, I just have to look up to see you. Then you must keep your word. When we have babies in the future, we can flip through photo albums together and reminisce. By the way, how many babies do you want? Boys should look tall and handsome like you, but girls, it's better if they take after me. The two chatted back and forth. Seemingly forgetting Melissa's presence, she stared fixedly at the scenery outside the window, not uttering a word. On the day Benedict underwent his vision-restoring surgery, she had a dream while sedated by sleeping pills. In his dream, the first person he saw upon waking was her, and from then on, no one else could compare. He would stay by her side every moment, prepare countless surprises, take her on dates, and explore the vibrant world together. He would kneel down to propose to her solemnly, hold her hand as they walked into the wedding hall, and embrace her and their child for a family portrait. In her dream, she found someone who truly loved her and built a little home of her own. It's just a pity that after waking from the dream, everything turned to bubbles. She fought desperately, but in the end met a tragic death. In a daze, the screech of sudden brakes startled Melissa. Hearing the noise, she looked up and saw a sports car, seemingly with failed brakes, heading straight toward them. With a heavy thud, the entire car was slammed into the bridge pier. Melissa felt her whole body crashing as if it were about to fall apart. With blood streaming from her forehead, arms, and legs, an overwhelming pain surged through her, making her feel as if she were being torn apart. The agony so intense she could barely catch her breath. She opened her blood-stained eyes and saw Benedict carrying the trembling Molly out of the car. The car doors on both sides were severely deformed, and the trunk was engulfed in flames. Melissa bit her lip until it bled, forcing herself to stay conscious as she dragged her injured body towards the passenger seat. With every movement, blood dripped down, staining the seats and the ground. She barely managed to crawl out of the car and had only taken a few steps when she heard an explosion behind her. The flames shot up into the sky, and she was thrown to the ground by the blast. Staring at the car that had just exploded, Melissa felt her blood run cold. She couldn't bear to imagine, had she hesitated a few seconds longer, or been knocked unconscious, she might have died in the crash again. From the moment the danger arose until she saved herself, 5 minutes had passed. Benedict never once glanced her way. Even though Molly was already safe and sound, he never considered turning back to save her. Seeing him holding Molly and comforting her gently, Melissa wore a weary and bitter smile. All her strength had drained away, her eyelids heavy as lead. In her dazed state, she heard the beeping of an ambulance and the urgent voices of nurses. Melissa is more severely injured. She has already fainted due to heavy bleeding. Mr. Benedict, we recommend prioritizing her for the operating room, or her life could be in danger. I don't care what happens to Melissa. I just want Molly to be safe. Molly is also injured. You must save her first. Hearing the familiar voice, Melissa barely opened her eyes and saw Benedict's anxious, tense face. Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin also rushed over, gathering around Molly while continuously wiping their tears. Save Molly first. We've raised her like a precious jewel all these years. If anything happens to her, how could her mother and I go on living? Yes, we're their family members. If anything really happens to Melissa, we won't cause trouble for the hospital. Don't worry about Melissa now. Molly's safety is the most important. Hearing them unanimously choose Molly, the last shred of hope and longing in Melissa's heart vanished completely. Endless darkness surged forth, pulling her down into the abyss. In the moment before death in my previous life, that familiar sense of helplessness and panic enveloped me once again. Melissa never expected to still be alive. The smell of disinfectant lingered in the air as she remained dazed for a long time before gradually regaining clarity. The doctor examined her body, a hint of relief evident in his tone. We worked for over 10 hours to pull you back from the brink of death. It's a relief you woke up. Hearing this, Melissa's eyes flickered slightly, her voice hoarse. Thank you for saving my life. The doctor nodded, looking at her, hesitating to speak further. Were those who brought you to the hospital that day your biological parents? Melissa parted her lips slightly, then fell into silence. Seeing her expression, the doctor didn't dare to ask further and left with a sigh. For the next 2 days, she stayed alone in the hospital, still with no visitors. It wasn't until the day of discharge that Mr. and Mrs. Oswin came, not to inquire about her health, but to give a reminder. Tomorrow is your sister's wedding day. Since you've agreed to leave, you should go before the wedding tomorrow. Hearing their matter-of-fact tone, Melissa nodded. Seeing her so obedient, Mr. and Mrs. Oswin's expressions finally softened a little. For your sister's happiness, you should step aside. Once their relationship stabilizes and they have a child, we'll bring you back for a reunion. We've already transferred the money to your account. Take good care of yourself abroad." After giving these instructions, the two hurried off to attend to Molly. Leaving abruptly, Melissa watched their retreating figures, then pulled the ticket to the UK from her pocket and tore it to shreds. Then, she took out her phone and booked a ticket to Australia. She would grant their wishes and fulfill everyone's desires, only in a way that meant leaving their world, ensuring they could never find her again. After leaving the hospital, Melissa went to see a doctor and drafted a parental termination agreement. She solemnly signed her name on it and then placed the agreement in a box. Along with it, she also put in the cassette tapes she had secretly recorded of Benedict telling her stories while they were together at the old house. She had taken those tapes to him countless times, but he never spared her even a minute, refusing to listen. Now that she has decided to leave, she also plans to clear all of this away. As for whether he listens or not, it no longer has anything to do with her. In any case, she will disappear completely, never to be found by anyone again. That night, the downstairs was endlessly noisy with wedding preparations. Melissa didn't sleep well. She woke up early, had breakfast, and then put her suitcase in the trunk. Just as she was about to leave, the wedding procession arrived. Looking at the dashing and dignified Benedict in his well-tailored suit, she nodded in greeting and called him brother-in-law for the first time, and the last time. Benedict also froze for a moment, looking at the car behind her and frowning. "You don't need to attend today's wedding, just stay at home." Melissa knew they were afraid she would disrupt the ceremony if she went to the wedding. She shook her head and handed over the carefully prepared gift, her voice calm. "I'm not going to your wedding, and I won't disturb your happy life anymore. Wishing you a happy marriage, goodbye." With that, she turned around, got into the car, and closed the door. Benedict watched the car starting up, his heart pounding violently. He instinctively wanted to call out to her and ask where she was really going today. But before he could even open his mouth, Molly in a white dress called out to him, "Benedict, hold me," through the rearview mirror. Melissa watched as he casually tossed the box to his assistant, then turned and smilingly lifted Molly into a princess carry. The car slowly drove out of the villa area, and she rolled down the window, throwing her phone outside. From now on, the old Melissa is dead, and the new Melissa will have a brand new future. As the plane gradually took off, Melissa sitting by the window felt slightly dazed. She watched the once all too familiar buildings gradually fade into the distance, yet there wasn't the slightest trace of nostalgia in her heart. Instead, she felt a sense of liberation. She was finally leaving this place that was supposedly called home. From a very young age, Melissa had thought about leaving, as she was acutely aware of her parents' favoritism toward their two daughters. In every aspect of life and daily interactions, Mr. and Mrs. Oswin had always treated her like an outsider. She even wondered if she might not be their biological daughter, which was why Mr. and Mrs. Oswin treated her differently. But the truth was not as she had imagined. She was indeed Mr. and Mrs. Oswin's biological daughter and Molly's younger sister. This fact was undoubtedly an even greater blow to her. If that's the case, then the only explanation is that they simply didn't love her. It was precisely because they didn't love her that they treated her differently. Even her birth was merely to save Molly. Melissa sometimes wonders if Molly wouldn't have come into this world at all if she didn't need the umbilical cord blood to save her life. As for Benedict, she had thought he would be her salvation, because he was the kindest to her and the one who made her feel the most tenderness in all this time. Although before his accident, Melissa had already developed a crush on him, what moved her the most wasn't Benedict's status or position. It was his unique and genuine heart for her. That's why she fell in love with him without hesitation. But now he fully believes that the person he spends every day with is Molly, no matter how she explains or repeatedly proves herself to him. But Benedict just wouldn't believe it. The plane passed through an area of turbulent air, causing slight vibrations in the fuselage. The wounds from the car accident still ached faintly. Melissa couldn't help but gasp. Her injuries had almost completely healed. But for some reason, ever since she was Molly pushed into the water last time, she has become unusually afraid of the cold. Even on overcast days without rain, Melissa would feel abnormally cold. She instinctively tightened the blanket around herself, but still felt it was of little use, still feeling chills all over. Just as I was considering whether to ask the flight attendant for another blanket, the man beside me suddenly handed over his own blanket. Melissa was slightly taken aback. "I don't need it, you can have it." The man's voice was warm and pleasant, though his spotless white shirt gave him a somewhat serious air. However, he was wearing a mask, making it hard to see his face clearly. The only thing visible was his mesmerizing eyes. Unusually beautiful, thank you. Melissa expressed her gratitude and took the blanket, wrapping it around herself once more. She instantly felt much better, so sleep-deprived that Melissa began to feel drowsy. Ladies and gentlemen, please be advised that our flight is expected to arrive at Sydney International Airport in approximately 30 minutes. The ground temperature in Sydney is 22 degrees Celsius, 6 degrees Fahrenheit. The clear announcement repeated over and over. Melissa finally woke up slowly. She realized with a start that she had slept for nearly 2 hours, and her waist and legs felt slightly sore. Half an hour later, after retrieving her suitcase, Melissa glanced at the time displayed on her phone screen. She noticed it was still earlier than her scheduled arrival time. Looking at her empty message page, she had long grown accustomed to it. Even if she were to truly disappear one day, probably no one would care whether she lived or died. Since she had already moved to a new place, she wanted no further connection to anything from her past. Whether it was people or things, Melissa had already let go, looking at the unfamiliar buildings around her and people of various skin colors. And the friendly gazes directed at her, Melissa felt quite intrigued. This place was completely different from the streets where she grew up, yet she didn't feel afraid. Instead, she was filled with anticipation for her future life. Melissa pushed her luggage aside and located the address given by the landlord. She found the distance wasn't too far, but with luggage in tow, taking a taxi would be the most convenient option. So Melissa opened a ride-hailing app and booked the nearest available car. Although the fare wasn't exactly cheap, she was feeling thoroughly exhausted at the moment. Just want to be able to rest as soon as possible. The driver arrived quickly, picking her up by the roadside in less than 5 minutes. Melissa followed the address and arrived at her apartment building. The landlady with golden curly hair had been waiting for a long time. She handed the keys to Melissa and gave a few instructions before leaving. By the time Melissa realized it, she had already left. As she walked into the hallway, a somewhat familiar figure appeared at the corner, but vanished before she could get a clear look. Melissa shook her head, thinking she must not have slept well. The room wasn't large, but it was quite well equipped, with a small balcony in the bedroom. The sunlight streams through the balcony into the window, creating a very cozy atmosphere. Most importantly, there's a small external kitchen. She is quite satisfied. Melissa has no interest in what's known as white people food, especially disliking the cheese often found in such meals. Having a kitchen to cook in where I currently live is naturally the best. Additionally, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin didn't pay much attention to her, so most of the time she learned to cook for herself. Naturally, she was happy to have the conditions to cook now. Melissa gave the room a quick clean again, then opened her suitcase, took out all her clothes, and put them back in the wardrobe. She took out all her fragile items one by one and arranged them neatly. Looking at the room she had just set up, Melissa finally washed up and went to bed with satisfaction. The sleep on the plane had been quite uncomfortable. When she woke up again, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Looking at her new room, she still felt a bit unaccustomed. Melissa took a minute to react before realizing she had truly arrived in Australia. It was summer in Sydney in February, so she found a cool dress to change into before heading out. Unlike the meticulous preparations before going out back home, Melissa now wanted to simply enjoy the sunshine outside. She planned to find a restaurant to have a meal first, then buy some ingredients before heading home. Suddenly, a wave of fragrant aroma rushed into her nostrils. Melissa's taste buds were instantly captivated. Subconsciously, she followed the scent to a restaurant. Noticing that the restaurant's signature dish was steak, Melissa ordered a specialty steak and additionally requested to remove the original cheesy potato wedges. When the steak was served, Melissa couldn't wait to take a bite and found the meat tender and indeed delicious. She ate to her heart's content. Just as she was about to pay the bill, she suddenly realized her cash and cards were in the pocket of another outfit. She completely forgot about this when changing her skirt. Just as she was feeling embarrassed, a hand extended his card, offering to pay together. Melissa was somewhat surprised, following the gaze to find it was the man from the airport that morning. Only then did he get a clear look at his face. His bone structure was exceptional, with prominent brow bones and a perfectly proportioned nose bridge. It gave off a slightly aloof impression. Melissa repeatedly said thank you. How can I return it to you? No thanks. I have a prepaid card. The man raised a golden card in his hand as he spoke. His fluent Chinese surprised Melissa, as his appearance didn't seem like someone who would speak Chinese so well. But the price of this meal was really not cheap. and she was determined to return the favor. "That won't do, I still have to return it to you," Melissa blurted out instinctively. The man turned slightly and suddenly said, "Then treat me to ice cream next time." The one downstairs from the apartment building. Melissa froze in place. Only then realizing that the person she had seen on the stairs must have been him. She hadn't been mistaken. "All right, then I'll treat you to ice cream next time." After the man had walked away, Melissa realized she hadn't even had the chance to ask for his name. She felt inexplicably annoyed in her heart, having taken such a big advantage from someone else. After returning to the apartment, Melissa went downstairs again with the cash to buy some groceries and stocked them in the fridge. Looking at the fully stocked fridge, she instantly felt a strong sense of security. The phone suddenly rang. Melissa glanced at it and saw that Molly had sent a few photos via email. In the photo, she is seen wearing a white fishtail gown, smiling sweetly at the camera. Behind her stands Benedict, looking adoringly at her. The two appear to be the picture of newlywed bliss. The remaining photos show a diamond ring and another of the couple with Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin. Her hand holding the phone tightened slightly. Molly's intentions couldn't be clearer to her now. It was just to prove to her that Benedict now had eyes only for her. There were a few more messages beneath the photo. "This is the wedding dress I finally chose. Isn't it beautiful? When I was picking out dresses, I liked another one, but Benedict said this one accentuates my waist better. So he ended up buying both for me." The same with the diamond ring. "I told him it didn't need to be so big since I don't wear it often, but Benedict insisted on buying it. I originally wanted you to attend the wedding, but Benedict was against it. He said he didn't want to see you on such a happy day, and our parents also said your presence would bring bad luck, so it was unanimously decided not to invite you. Now that we're about to get married, it's time for you to let go. I don't care about whatever happened between you and Benedict in the past, but from now on, you better remember, the one by his side can only be me, and Benedict will only ever be your brother-in-law." Melissa read these words, and she could almost picture Molly saying them with that tone and expression. She didn't reply, just silently closed the page. Melissa suddenly remembered Benedict once gently describing her brows and eyes, saying her eyes must be very beautiful. She retorted, asking what if he could see later and found she wasn't actually good-looking. Benedict said no matter what she looked like, she would always be the most captivating in his heart. The boy's sweet words were fervent and direct. Melissa felt her ears tinge slightly red as she listened. She had indeed imagined a future with him, even picturing the possibility of marriage and a happy family together, though in her heart she had already let go of Benedict. But looking at these photos, her heart still felt a slight pang of bitterness. But what's past is past, and she would no longer hold any expectations. Just as the wedding was about to begin, a little boy holding grape juice suddenly ran into the hall and collided with Molly. The deep purple grape juice instantly stained most of her white dress. She couldn't help but exclaim, "My dress! Whose naughty child is this? Who let them in? Take them away immediately." Hearing the commotion, Benedict hurried over. Seeing Molly's impatient expression, his footsteps instantly froze in place. In his impression, she had always been gentle and quiet in temperament. Even when facing difficulties, she wouldn't be this irritable. Suddenly seeing her like this, Benedict felt somewhat unaccustomed. "Benedict, when did you arrive? I didn't even notice you." Benedict looked up at her again, only to see the same gentle expression on her face, as if she were a completely different person from just moments ago. "I heard your voice just now and came to check. Are you all right, Molly?" "It's nothing, just a little boy accidentally spilled some grape juice on my dress. I'll go change into another one. You wait here for me." "Okay." Benedict nodded. For some reason, looking at Molly, he always felt a strange sense of unfamiliarity. This feeling wasn't just momentary, but would occasionally resurface. It feels a bit different from when he was with her before. But he couldn't quite put his finger on what exactly was different, and sometimes the person who suddenly appeared in his mind wasn't Molly but Melissa. Benedict had a slight suspicion in his heart, but he couldn't bring it up. After all, Molly was his wife, and he was merely Melissa's brother-in-law. He suddenly remembered how Melissa had called him brother-in-law before he got in the car. She had looked pale when she handed over the wedding gift she had prepared before leaving. He didn't even have time to call out to her subconsciously. Benedict suddenly remembered the box and decided to see what was inside. Following the elevator to the parking lot, Benedict searched the car thoroughly. He called his assistant. "Where's that box I gave you this morning, Mr. Benedict? Do you mean the box that Miss Oswin's sister gave you?" Noticing his sudden inquiry, the assistant's tone became hesitant. Benedict frowned deeply. What exactly happened? Can't you even keep one thing safe, Mr. Benedict? Miss Oswin said since it wasn't worth anything anyway. She told me to just throw it in the trash. What? Benedict was somewhat annoyed. Then do you remember where you threw it? Hurry up and get it back for me. All right, I'll go right away. The assistant left immediately after speaking. Watching his retreating figure, he felt inexplicably uneasy. 10 minutes later, the assistant hurried over carrying a box. Just about to hand it to Benedict when Molly interrupted, he tactfully walked away with the box in his arms. Benedict, how did you end up here? I couldn't find you the moment I stepped out of the changing room. This is the dress I just changed into. Do you think it looks nice? Melissa twirled as she spoke, her purple train wedding gown shimmering under the lights. But Benedict's eyes darkened slightly, because he clearly remembered her saying she didn't like purple. So why would she choose a purple dress on her wedding day? The doubts in his heart grew stronger. His thoughts became a tangled mess. It looks beautiful. This color really suits you. Benedict smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Molly, however, remained completely unaware of his unease, still absorbed in admiring her own dress. As the melodious sound of the piano began, the MC slowly walked onto the stage and started the classic opening speech, when introducing the bride and groom. Molly was full of longing. Benedict remained calm-eyed. He held Molly's hand and slowly walked onto the stage, but in a daze, he realized the face that appeared in his mind was actually Melissa's. He stood there, not moving a step for a long time. Benedict, what's wrong with you? Benedict, beside him, Molly called out several times without getting any response. She was both angry and frustrated, as the guests below began to murmur and the host desperately tried to smooth things over. In a moment of desperation, Molly gently nudged Benedict's arm. He suddenly snapped back to reality. Seeing this, the MC quickly said that the groom might be too exhausted from wedding preparations and asked everyone to understand. After the two absent-mindedly exchanged rings, it was time for the toast. I'm feeling a bit unwell. Let's do the toast a little later. Benedict finished speaking and left directly, completely disregarding Molly's feelings. She wanted to chase after him to ask. But the guests were still waiting. Molly had no choice but to stay and comfort the guests. Benedict drove all night yesterday, so he's a bit tired. He'll greet everyone later. After saying that, she took a glass of wine and made a toast. Although the guests were somewhat puzzled in their hearts. It wasn't the right time to say anything. After all, it was someone else's wedding venue. Benedict returned backstage, and the assistant immediately handed him that box. He gently opened the clasp of the box, revealing a small cassette tape and a document severing parental ties. Gazing at the three bold, forceful characters written on it, he froze instinctively. Melissa, does she have a very strained relationship with her family? Why would one actively sever parental ties? But seeing how Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin were usually so considerate towards Molly, Benedict found it somewhat perplexing. As his fingers brushed over the tape, Benedict realized it looked familiar. It seemed Melissa had once brought this to him, asking him to listen. But at the time he had dismissed it as her being unreasonable, so I didn't want to listen to the contents of the tape. Now that she had given this to herself, Benedict felt an urge to listen to it. He found a computer and inserted the tape into it. After the noisy electronic sounds began, a male voice began to tell a story, its clear and melodious tone sending a shiver through his heart, because the person narrating the story on the tape was none other than himself. This was Benedict's recording from when he was blind, told to Molly. Why would Melissa have it? Could it be that the one who accompanied him wasn't Molly at all, but Melissa? Did she steal Molly's things again? Benedict immediately took out his phone, trying to call Melissa for clarification, but the call just wouldn't go through, so he took the tape and decided to go find Molly to get some answers. Since she confidently claimed to be that person, she must know something. Benedict pulled Molly, who was in the middle of a toast, backstage. Molly, are you really the one who's been by my side all this time? His grip was strong, and Molly couldn't break free from his hold. Benedict, what's wrong? Why are you asking this all of a sudden? Of course it's me who's been with you. Who else could love you this much besides me? What's wrong with you? You've been absent-minded all day. Her tone carried a hint of impatience. Then do you remember the story I told you? Benedict asked in a low voice. I remember. Of course I remember. It's just been so long that my memory is a bit hazy. Molly deliberately avoided his gaze. Her guilt and panic, he took it all in. At this point, Benedict had already realized it. Even if he still couldn't fully understand, Molly was fake. Melissa was the one he had been searching for all along. Benedict stared at her coldly, not uttering another word. At this moment, Molly realized she had most likely said the wrong thing and quickly explained. I didn't mean to forget the story you told me. It's just that wedding preparations have been overwhelming. Benedict, don't be angry, okay? After we get married, you can tell me more stories, all right? She clung to Benedict's sleeve and gently swayed it. Benedict stared at the face so close to his and felt nothing but disgust. Molly, you're still lying to me at this point, aren't you? You were never the one who truly stayed by my side. He suddenly shoved her away, and the unprepared Molly was violently pushed down the steps. Her entire body tumbled directly to the front of the stage. The wedding dress was torn apart, and her body was bruised in multiple places, in an instant. Countless camera flashes illuminated her. Molly ignored the pain in her body, only able to cover her face in panic. She dared not make any more sudden movements. She wanted to chase after and explain to Benedict. But Benedict preemptively stepped onto the stage and snatched the microphone. Everyone, today's wedding is hereby cancelled. Molly is not the bride I'm looking for. With that, he strode straight out of the banquet hall. Benedict had just left when he encountered Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin. What's wrong, Benedict? Where are you going? Isn't it time for the toast soon? Benedict looked at the clueless Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin and threw the box directly at their feet. The thought of them deceiving him along with Molly made his blood boil. I'm not going through with this wedding. You all know exactly why. Oswin family, I won't forget this. Benedict's words sent Mr. and Mrs. Oswin into a panic. After exchanging glances, they picked up the box from the floor and hurried toward the hall. The assembled guests immediately began buzzing with discussion at the unfolding scene. What's going on? Didn't they just finish the wedding ceremony? Now it's announced as cancelled. Is Mr. Benedict not getting married after all? Don't you know, Mr. Benedict was previously kept in a secluded residence, and I heard he was even blind for some time. He met a girl during that period and went through great efforts to find her. Judging by today's events, it seems an imposter was caught red-handed. Otherwise, why would the wedding be cancelled on the same day? This is utter nonsense. TSK. So that's what happened. Serves her right. Who told her to impersonate someone else? Now she's getting her comeuppance, having the wedding cancelled publicly. The Oswin family must be utterly humiliated, raising such a daughter. Though the voices weren't loud, Molly heard every single word crystal clear from beginning to end. She dug her fingertips fiercely into her palm, not letting go until blood was drawn. Mr. and Mrs. Oswin, who had rushed over in haste, were extremely worried and immediately blocked the filming camera, helping Molly to the back. Molly, did you let something slip? How could Benedict have suddenly found out at this time? Mrs. Oswin asked with a stern expression. I didn't. I never said anything. It must be Melissa. She definitely did something sneaky. Benedict wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Melissa just can't stand to see me happy. She's made me look like such a fool. Mom, Dad, you have to teach her a lesson, Molly cried out in a tearful voice. Mrs. Oswin looked at her daughter's distress with heartache. There, I promise you. We'll definitely teach Melissa a proper lesson. How could she treat her sister like this? Mr. Oswin also chimed in from the side. That's right, Dad and Mom have always doted on you the most. Don't worry. We'll definitely give you an explanation today. That's more like it. But Benedict, what about him? He must already know I'm not that person. Melissa's eyes flashed with a trace of resentment. Don't worry, Benedict. We'll handle the explanation on that end. If it comes to it, we'll go straight to the Marshall family. Our Oswin family has its pride too. This marriage must happen. Mrs. Oswin comforted. I knew it. You're always the one who cares for me the most. Molly threw herself into Mrs. Oswin's arms and said leisurely. Suddenly she noticed Mr. Oswin holding a box in his hand, which looked vaguely familiar to her. This seems to be the wedding gift Melissa gave to Benedict today. But she clearly remembered asking Benedict's assistant to throw it away when they got out of the car. How could it still be here now? What is this? Molly casually opened it and found it was a paper document. It bore several large characters. Parent-child relationship severance document. Melissa walked to the window and pushed it open. Discovering the weather outside was splendid, her heart instantly brightened considerably. I decided to go downstairs for a stroll, taking advantage of the free time I had before my interview. As she walked through the grass downstairs, she suddenly heard faint meowing sounds. She turned her head but saw no sign of any kittens. Melissa initially thought she had misheard and was about to leave when she heard the sound again. She crouched down in the grass to examine carefully and found a small orange cat inside an old abandoned pipe at the very back of the thicket. It was terribly thin, with wounds all over its body. When it saw Melissa approaching, It didn't show fear but instead tried to crawl toward her using both its paws. Melissa felt heartbroken at the sight. She immediately resolved to save it. But there were several concrete blocks placed in front of the pipe. Melissa tried several times but couldn't lift them. She wanted to ask for help, but she didn't know anyone here except the man who had helped her check out. After much hesitation, Melissa decided to try her luck and knocked on his door. The man appeared to have just woken up. Upon seeing her, he quickly straightened his clothes. "Is there something you need from me?" Melissa hurriedly recounted her encounter with the kitten downstairs. "All right, then wait for me a moment." After the man finished speaking, he quickly went back home to change his clothes, and then the two of them went downstairs together. After clearly seeing the kitten's position, he carefully moved the stones aside and then gently used his hand to bring the kitten out of the pipe. At this moment, the kitten seemed to sense something and kept meowing non-stop, but it didn't struggle. Instead, obediently nestled in the man's arms. "It looks like its hind leg is injured. We need to take it to the hospital." "Okay, I know where a pet hospital is." After walking for a few minutes, they arrived at the hospital. A nurse came over to ask about the situation and said they needed to examine it first. The man carefully placed the kitten on the examination table. The two then exited the examination room. Shortly after, the nurse brought the kitten back out, explaining that its leg wasn't seriously injured, just some abrasions that needed proper care. However, it was somewhat malnourished, need to be hospitalized for observation for a few days. Melissa looked at the kitten in her arms, and her anxious heart instantly relaxed. "Thank you so much today. If it weren't for you, I really wouldn't know who else to turn to." "I haven't asked your name yet." Melissa's voice was full of gratitude. "No problem. I'm also happy to have saved the kitten. My name is Albert. And you?" "Melissa." Albert subconsciously repeated the name after hearing it, then nodded. After settling the kitten, the two returned to the apartment building together. Perhaps it was because they now had something to do together. The walk back wasn't awkward as they chatted along the way. Melissa learned Albert was employed by a legal consulting firm here, coincidentally. She had been interested in the legal profession since childhood, so the two began discussing their perspectives on the field. As the conversation progressed, they found themselves increasingly in sync, as if they had been friends for years. Melissa, her impression of him also changed. Albert was not as aloof as he appeared on the surface. "Wait here for me." "Okay." Albert was somewhat puzzled but instinctively agreed, until Melissa came running back with 2 huge ice creams. Only then did he understand her intention. "You still remember?" "Of course," Melissa said as she handed him the ice cream. Albert didn't spoil the mood and took it. The glaring sunlight filtered through the tree shadows, and as he gazed at the Melissa before him, he couldn't help but feel his cheeks grow warm. Realizing this, Albert quickly made an excuse to go home. Melissa didn't seem to notice. After agreeing to go to the hospital together next time, she also returned to her own apartment. For many days after that, Melissa and the other person often made appointments to go to the pet hospital together. Under the careful care of the nurse, the kitten's condition improved a lot. Melissa originally wanted to take it home to raise, but the landlord had previously said that pets were not allowed in the apartment. This was one of the conditions she had to abide by. "How about leaving the kitten with me? My room is quite spacious. And I also have experience raising cats back in my home country," Albert said as he pulled out his phone album to show her. His wallpaper turned out to be a photo of a beautiful little tabby cat. Its round, sparkling eyes looked utterly adorable. "Okay, but I'll buy the cat food and such. You've already taken care of the vet fees, so this time it's my turn," Melissa said while looking at the kitten in her arms. "Okay, but you probably can't handle it all by yourself. I'll go with you," Albert suggested. Melissa didn't expect him to be so considerate and immediately agreed. The two of them went on to buy some supplies and toys for the kitten. Melissa has a bit of a problem with making small decisions, but Albert showed no impatience whatsoever. Instead, he patiently offered suggestions. Melissa felt a warmth in her heart. She had never experienced someone being so patient with her before. Suddenly, she remembered how Benedict had been the same way before. But later he wouldn't even spare time to listen to a tape for her. "What's wrong?" Noticing her troubled expression, Albert immediately asked. "It's nothing, just thinking that we haven't given the kitten a name yet." "Then why don't you choose one? After all, you're its owner." Melissa thought for a moment. "How about we call it Paula? What do you think?" Melissa looked at Albert with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. "I think it's very cute, so from now on we'll call it Paula." Because they returned from the hospital quite late, so Albert hailed a taxi, and while waiting, he even called the driver in advance to ask if cats were allowed. the driver happily agreed. However, upon arrival, he gave Melissa a meaningful glance and said something to Albert in Russian. Melissa didn't quite understand, so she leaned closer to Albert and asked, "Why is he looking at me so strangely? What did he just say?" "He said your kitten is so cute, he'd like to steal it." "Really, why?" Melissa immediately shielded the kitten in her arms upon seeing this. Her action amused Albert. "Just kidding." Melissa remained silent but quietly held the kitten in her arms tighter. From an angle she couldn't see, Albert's smile was radiant. Reluctantly placing the kitten at Albert's home, Melissa hurried back to take a shower. Her phone suddenly vibrated. Fresh out of the shower, Melissa was puzzled about who would message her at this hour. Upon checking, I found it was a news notification. The headline read, "The richest man, Benedict, publicly calls off the wedding." Not only did he leave the bride stranded at the wedding venue, but he also outright declared that she wasn't the one he was looking for. In the clear photos, the wedding scene was in complete chaos, but the first thing that caught the eye was still the vast expanse of sunflowers. Whether it was the hand-painted sunflowers on the posters or the cartoon sunflower patterns on the souvenirs at each table, all because she had once said she really loved sunflowers. She even dreamed of having a sunflower-themed wedding. It seems he truly remembered his words. As the page slowly scrolled down, Melissa's heart skipped a beat slightly with the news content. Benedict finally saw her recording tape, but even so, she would no longer hold any expectations for him. Before, Benedict's every action toward her still lingered vividly in her mind. At this point, no matter how he tried to make amends, it was already futile. She closed the page and silently unfollowed everything about that place. Melissa no longer wanted any further contact. Looking at this legally valid document, all three of them were momentarily stunned. Molly was utterly disdainful. "Melissa, what kind of madness is this again? Just because we didn't let her attend the wedding? She had to send such a thing specifically to Benedict. Is it to make him think our Oswin family treated her poorly? It must be intentional. Now if she finds out the wedding didn't happen, she must be gloating beyond measure." Hearing her say this, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin instantly felt she made a valid point. Their hearts were immediately filled with resentment towards Melissa. Mr. Oswin then decided to make a call to reprimand his unfilial daughter. But the phone only emitted a cold electronic tone, and nothing else. Mr. Oswin was furious. "She won't even answer my calls. She's really grown too bold." Mrs. Oswin refused to believe it and tried calling herself, only to find the line still dead. "It seems she's determined to cut all ties with us, Mom, Dad. Since she's brought me such misery, why not just disown her from the Oswin family?" Molly seized the opportunity to propose. Mr. and Mrs. Oswin unanimously agreed and planned to immediately have the document notarized by a lawyer. Molly finally let out a slight sigh of relief. After the three returned to the Oswin residence, Molly felt a surge of anger upon seeing the wedding character pasted at the entrance. She frantically tore down all the decorations. Without eating dinner, she locked herself in the room again. Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin were extremely worried seeing this. They took turns going to her door to persuade her. "Molly, you've been working all day, you mustn't skip meals, right? No matter what, come out and eat something, okay?" After a long while, Molly's voice finally came from the room. "I don't care, I'm determined to marry Benedict. I've already had the wedding ceremony. If I don't marry him now, I'll truly become a laughingstock. You all said you had a solution, now go figure it out for me." Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin had no choice but to drive to the Marshal's villa. Before the car even came to a complete stop, several black-suited bodyguards quickly approached and blocked their path. "Who are you? You can't just barge in here." The leader of the group was holding a stun baton and began tapping it against the car window. Mr. Oswin stepped out reluctantly, saying, "We're not just random people, we're your Mr. Benedict father-in-law. I advise you to go and inform them quickly, otherwise, if Mr. Benedict finds out, it won't be good." I thought that person might be afraid, yet unexpectedly, that person instead let out a light laugh. Then, with a glance, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin were sized up. "Father-in-law, we Mr. Benedict aren't even married yet. Where does this father-in-law come from? Clearly an imposter. Get lost now. Don't blame me if I get rough if you don't leave." The man then brandished the stun baton in his hand, originally wanting to say something. Mrs. Oswin was instantly frightened into silence. Mr. Oswin couldn't bear to leave just like that, so he shouted at the villa, "Benedict, Molly's matter has its reasons, you must hear us out. Besides, the wedding has already been announced to the whole city. If you cancel it just like this, the Marshall family will surely find out, And it will affect you too. The bodyguard tried to stop him and intended to restrain him. Suddenly, a man who looked like a butler hurried over and whispered a few words into the bodyguard's ear. The bodyguard immediately released Mr. Oswin. You're lucky, Mr. Benedict said he wants to see you. Me, Mr. Oswin pointed at himself. Yes, as for her, she's to wait downstairs and not wander around. Mr. Oswin dared not voice any objection. He immediately followed the butler into the villa. Benedict stood by the tall floor-to-ceiling window, holding a freshly lit cigarette in his hand, long before he realized Melissa was the one he had been searching for. He immediately sent people to search the entire city, but there was still no trace of her. Even all his contact methods showed that her accounts had been deactivated. His heart was filled with both guilt and anxiety. What filled him with guilt was that he hadn't recognized her after all this time. What made him anxious was that despite having done so many terrible things, he now didn't even have a chance to explain. At this moment, he had only one thought: to quickly find Melissa. Hearing his assistant knock on the door, he immediately stubbed out the cigarette in his hand. I heard you're going to tell the Marshall family about this, is that right? Would you consider this a threat to me? Benedict's voice was icy to the extreme. It made Mr. Oswin, who had just entered, shiver involuntarily, instantly feeling the room temperature drop several degrees. No, that's absolutely not what I meant. I just don't want to see such a good marriage ruined. Facing Benedict, Mr. Oswin instantly lost his previous aggressive demeanor. There was even a hint of ingratiation in his tone. A good marriage? What do you Oswins take me for? Benedict, do you really think I'm a fool? Benedict let out a light chuckle. The intensity in his eyes made Mr. Oswin dare not look up, but thinking of his daughter starving herself at home, he still spoke up. Both Molly's mother and I are extremely satisfied with you. How could we possibly think you're a fool? Look how well you get along with Molly. What does it matter whether she's the one taking care of you? I was thinking, why don't you just let the mistake become the truth? Mr. Oswin's shameless remarks left Benedict at a loss for words. So the person taking care of me wasn't Molly, it was Melissa, right? If you don't tell me the truth, I'll throw you straight off this building. Benedict grabbed Mr. Oswin by the collar and demanded. Mr. Oswin was already nervous, and this scared him even more. He collapsed to the ground instantly as he looked out the window. Yes, Melissa, not Molly. At first we didn't know. It was Molly who told us you were looking for someone, and the person you were looking for closely resembled Melissa. So we had Molly assume Melissa's identity. And that bracelet also belonged to Melissa. Benedict lowered his eyes. Since you think so highly of me, Benedict, marrying either of your daughters would be the same. Why deceive me? Molly is the daughter I worked so hard to obtain. Melissa was just born to save her as a disposable accessory. Of course they're different. Mentioning the differences between the two daughters, Mr. Oswin immediately said with an air of ease, after all, in his heart, Molly was his true daughter, while Melissa he couldn't care less about. Whatever Molly wanted, as a father, he would make sure she got it. Listening to Mr. Oswin's noticeably different terms of endearment for his two daughters, Benedict now understood why she had taken the initiative to sever their parent-child relationship. In an instant, his heart ached for her even more. Then where is Melissa now? Or have you hidden her away? Benedict spoke in a hurried tone. She's already gone to the UK. Do you have the exact address? Mr. White shook his head. Benedict stared at the unrepentant Mr. Oswin before him. He then ordered the bodyguards to seize him and lock him up in the basement along with Mrs. Oswin downstairs. Mr. Oswin looked utterly disbelieving. I've already told you everything. How can you do this, Benedict? Aren't you afraid of retribution? Mr. Oswin's shouts soon faded away, leaving only the incessant ticking of the clock in the room. Benedict walked to the window to light a cigarette, but no matter how hard he tried, it just wouldn't catch. In a fit of anger, he smashed the ashtray directly onto the ground. Glass fragments instantly scattered everywhere. His arm was also cut by the shards, and bright red blood flowed out. A sharp pain came through, yet he felt nothing at all. Melissa, where exactly are you? I already know the truth. Please, can you meet me, Mr. Benedict? This is what you previously asked me to investigate. The assistant placed the document folder in their hand onto the table as they spoke. Benedict opened it to find the hospital billing records from that time. The records clearly showed that Molly had suddenly fallen seriously ill at age 3 and urgently needed umbilical cord blood to save her life. Melissa was born for no other reason than Molly. Benedict tightened his grip slightly on the documents. He had always been puzzled by Mr. Oswin Mrs. Oswin's favoritism, but never expected it to be this. Also in the file was a phone with a somewhat worn exterior. Benedict knew her. This was Melissa's previous device. The assistant traced the SIM card's last location through her call records. It was then handed over to technicians for data recovery. Only then was it passed into Benedict's hands. He hesitated for a moment while looking at the 4-digit phone passcode on the unlock screen. Benedict entered 0616. With a response sound, the screen was successfully unlocked. His eyes instantly reddened. Just because June 16th is Benedict's birthday. Continued to see that some software accounts had already been logged out, only leaving behind some photos that hadn't been deleted in time and a few messages. Went through the photos in the album one by one. There are roadside flowers and all kinds of clouds. But more often, it's Benedict. Starting from the campus and later, he unexpectedly lost his sight. Every photo Melissa has been carefully preserved, even the class photos from their school days. Melissa kept them all. Benedict suddenly felt a pang of bitterness in his heart. It seemed like she had been quietly loving him in many unnoticed moments. Even when he was abandoned by the Marshall family, she would still stay by his side. He could never forget the days and nights they spent together, nor could he forget Melissa's genuine heart towards him. Melissa's love for him always seemed to be so quiet and unassuming, like a calm and unrippled lake, though rarely disturbed. It remains crystal clear. Opening the information page, Benedict unexpectedly discovered that the person who sent the most messages to Melissa was Molly. She had sent her wedding photos and some intimate daily pictures all to Melissa. Benedict looked through them one by one. The heart grows heavier still. Beneath the photos were mixed in some messages. Melissa, I heard you went to see Benedict again today. Have you no shame? Benedict is now your brother-in-law. What exactly are you trying to achieve by seducing him? Don't you understand even now? The one who will be with Benedict is me, and only me. Our parents have already decided to help me. Stop being so stubborn. Your entire existence has always been my appendage. If it weren't for my illness, how could you possibly have had the chance to come into this world? So you'd better recognize the truth. Everything I want, you must yield to me. Even Benedict is no exception. Unless you no longer wish to be the Oswin family's daughter. Reading through these chat records, Benedict's fury had completely reached its peak. This substitution farce was far more sordid than he had imagined. The situation has led to this outcome entirely due to Molly's selfish desires, and the unconditional indulgence of Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin, which is why he and Melissa kept missing each other. Figure out the sequence of events clearly. It becomes much easier to handle now that Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin have come knocking. The protagonist Molly certainly can't let them off so easily. Benedict instructed his assistant to bring Molly over immediately. Meanwhile, Molly, who had initially locked herself in her room, was overjoyed upon hearing that Benedict wanted to see her, thought it was Mr. Oswin Mrs. Oswin's persuasion that made the difference, so she changed into another outfit, took her time to dress up properly, and then leisurely followed her assistant out the door. Remember, drive slowly. I don't want my new makeup ruined, Molly said grumpily while checking herself in the mirror. She has always been this way, except when she has to Benedict to rein it in a bit. The assistant didn't bother arguing with her, just gave her a leisurely glance. That gaze was as if looking at a dead man walking, because he knew better than anyone else Benedict what kind of person he was. Molly would definitely come to no good end. When the car arrived at Marshall's villa, Molly was still wondering why no one came to open the car door for her today. She had no choice but to free the hand holding her bag and push the car door open to get out. Suddenly, an external force dragged her entire body over. Her eyes were immediately covered with a thick black cloth. A wave of immense fear surged through her heart. Molly instinctively screamed, "Who are you? Let me go. I am the wife of Benedict. Who dares to touch me?" Her voice was shrill and thin. The man who tied her up couldn't help but kick her calf and said viciously, "Shut up. If you want to live, behave yourself." Hearing this, Molly finally stopped screaming and dared not make another sound. It was unclear how much time had passed. Molly only realized she had been taken to an airtight place, where even the surrounding air felt somewhat thin. Benedict then walked over and abruptly tore off the black cloth covering her eyes. Molly instinctively shrank back. "What's wrong? So afraid of what I might do, or have you done something to feel guilty about?" Benedict gripped Molly's chin and looked at her as he spoke. Molly immediately felt a pang of guilt. "Benedict, how could it be you? Why did you have someone tie me up? Don't you have the slightest idea why I'm treating you this way?" Benedict spoke while slightly tightening his grip. Molly felt an excruciating pain in her jaw but couldn't speak, only managing to let out a few muffled whimpers. Benedict slowly loosened his grip. Molly, are you still acting with me at this point? Have you forgotten what you've done yourself, Melissa? Where exactly is she? Do you even know? When Melissa was mentioned, Molly became even more evasive. She coughed a few times before looking at Benedict and saying, Melissa's schedule was arranged by my parents. How could I possibly know? Benedict's gaze remained as calm as ever. You don't know? Fine. Then take a look at these things yourself and see if they look familiar. Benedict finished speaking and tossed his phone onto Molly. She hurriedly picked it up to check. Looking at the messages she had sent on her phone screen, Molly felt a sudden chill run through her body. She instinctively explained, I just didn't want her to keep coveting you. That's why I sent those messages. I love you. Even if you mistook me for someone else, you're already married to me, aren't you? So you're admitting you drove her away, right? Benedict's words made Molly instantly realize she had said the wrong thing, instinctively covering her mouth. The panic in her eyes was unmistakable. Benedict could no longer hold back and had his bodyguard step forward to deliver a heavy slap across her face. In an instant, Molly's cheek swelled rapidly, and a trickle of blood seeped from the corner of her mouth. You're nothing but a vile woman. You and your family conspired to deceive me and even drove Melissa away. And all those incidents before, you were the one pulling the strings behind the scenes, weren't you, Molly? How could your heart be so cruel? Melissa is your own blood sister after all. Benedict grew increasingly agitated as he spoke, hurling everything within reach at Molly, bound hand and foot. She had no ability to resist whatsoever, seeing Benedict's attitude. Molly simply decided to throw caution to the wind. Benedict, you say I'm cruel. Don't forget, every single thing I did was with your tacit approval. Haven't you ever wronged Melissa? You say she's my own sister, yet she was also the one you loved most. How come you didn't recognize her either, and you let her watch us together day and night? Wasn't all of this your indulgence? Now that Melissa is missing, you come to settle scores with me. Benedict, you're nothing but a scoundrel. Molly's words instantly enraged Benedict, who was already fuming. He was seen frantically choking Molly by the neck. You bitch, how dare you speak to me like that? I'll kill you. The overwhelming sense of suffocation triggered her instinct to fight back. But no matter how she struggled, Benedict showed no sign of stopping. The force of the injury continued to grow instead. As time passed minute by minute, Molly gradually stopped struggling. She lay motionless on the floor, her face deathly pale. She appeared utterly lifeless. Benedict subconsciously kicked her body and, finding her still alive, did not continue. He picked up a nearby silk scarf and wiped the bloodstains from his hands. Then he immediately gave orders to the people beside him. Find someone to watch her. It'd be best if she doesn't die. After dealing with Molly and the other two, Benedict still seemed unsatisfied. Anyway, Melissa no longer belongs to the Oswin family, so he can freely take revenge on the Oswin family. He had people start taking advantage of the Oswin family's absence to massively buy up shares of the Oswin family's company and began controlling the order amounts. Because the prices were too low, the Oswin family's company was boycotted by multiple firms. It was quickly shunned by the industry, but that wasn't enough. He deliberately leaked this information to the three people in the basement. Mr. Oswin was utterly devastated and fainted on the spot. Mrs. Oswin was also frantic with worry. After all, the Oswin family's company had already consumed a great deal of the couple's effort and dedication. The only person who didn't care was Molly. As soon as she saw Benedict, she began pleading incessantly for mercy. Benedict, please let me out, okay? I already know I was wrong. Don't keep me locked up here anymore. I'm really scared. There are cockroaches and mice everywhere. I can even feel them biting my feet. Just let me out, please. Let you out, sure. But you and your parents can only choose one person to survive. You decide. Benedict spoke in a disdainful tone, with a hint of mockery. Of course, let me out. They're old. I'm still young. Moreover, the idea of replacing Melissa was theirs. It has nothing to do with me. Benedict, you can investigate. Take that bracelet for example. It clearly belongs to Melissa, but they insist it's mine. Benedict, I swear this has nothing to do with me. Benedict wasn't surprised at all to hear Molly shifting blame so quickly. He'd long recognized her selfishness. Of course I believe you. But look over there, what's that? Molly followed his gaze in the direction he indicated. There stood Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin nearby, having clearly heard every word she said. Molly, we've spent half our lives planning for you. How could you do this to us? Mr. Oswin said with deep sorrow. He had barely regained consciousness when a sharp pain gripped his chest. Mrs. Oswin was also filled with disappointment in her eyes. She never expected that her beloved daughter would secretly speak so disparagingly of their efforts. No, Mom and Dad. It's Benedict's scheme. She deliberately drove a wedge between us. That's not what I meant, Molly explained in a fluster, but Benedict didn't give her the chance, as he had Molly taken away directly. So, how about it? This is your precious daughter. By now, you should have seen her for who she really is. Benedict leaned back gently in his chair, watching Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin's expressions gradually darken was quite satisfying. After emerging from the basement, Benedict had his bodyguards release Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin. However, the condition was that they also sever ties with Molly. Because I heard Molly speak such heartless words, Mr. Oswin and Mrs. Oswin agreed without the slightest hesitation. Benedict expressed great satisfaction, because these days he had already achieved his desired goal. Anyway, the Oswin family has nothing left. Letting them out would be a dead end. Mr. Benedict, what about Molly? The assistant asked from the side. She, of course, must taste Melissa's suffering. So he began preparing identical accidents, allergens, champagne towers, and varying degrees of drowning and flogging. After starving for a long time, Molly ate a large amount of mangoes and developed a full-body allergic reaction. With rashes of various shapes appearing, Molly was violently hit by a speeding car, resulting in a comminuted fracture of her lower leg. Molly was repeatedly pushed into the water, submerged in ice-filled water for a full 2 hours. Molly was pushed from the second floor onto a massive champagne tower on the first floor. With countless shards of glass instantly piercing her skin, Molly began enduring whippings morning, noon, and night. After all the torment, Molly went from begging for mercy to complete numbness. Benedict showed not the slightest bit of mercy. Only after the doctor confirmed Molly had suffered a mental breakdown and developed psychosis did Benedict send her to a psychiatric hospital. He had already made arrangements in advance, instructing that keeping her alive was sufficient, with no need for further care. The hospital director understood perfectly well, promised to treat her well. Benedict spent these days either searching for Melissa's whereabouts or staying at his former residence. As an outcast of the Marshall family, his living conditions were far from ideal. There were even times when rain leaked through the roof, leaving the entire room damp, but even so, he loved staying here because it carried Melissa's scent. It could soothe his restless heart a little. He gazed at the furnishings in the room, feeling both familiar and unfamiliar. Familiar because Melissa's presence made him feel incredibly warm. Unfamiliar because before this, he couldn't see at all. The only thing he could still perceive was due to Melissa's patient guidance time and again. One could say she was the hope in his dark life. Benedict's affection for her wasn't merely romantic. It stemmed more from Melissa as a person. She would worry about him falling, so she repeatedly taught him how to walk. She would arrange things according to his habits, just to make it easier for him to reach. Her love for him, though unseen, was genuinely felt by his heart. Memories surged like tides in Benedict's mind. His tears fell silently. The secretary suddenly called to say there was news about Melissa. She is currently in Australia, preparing for an interview with a design product company. Benedict's nerves tensed up again upon hearing this news. During the days when he couldn't find Melissa, his heart had been restless and uneasy, but now he suddenly knew her whereabouts. His heart was still filled with unease. He feared she might not forgive him. After all, he had failed to recognize her and had done such terrible things. Anyone would be disappointed. Then book me the fastest flight ticket now. I need to leave immediately to find her. But your current condition really isn't suitable for a long flight. The secretary looked at Benedict with hesitation, as if wanting to say more but holding back. However, Benedict completely ignored these concerns. He immediately stood up, straightened his clothes, and prepared to depart without delay. The secretary didn't dare to speak further and had no choice but to go ahead to drive the car. The two headed straight for the airport. The plane streaked across the sky, leaving behind a long, mottled trail of white contrails against the blue sky. Just like at this moment, Benedict's heart is filled with both anticipation and nervousness. Meanwhile, a light rain suddenly began to fall in Australia. It disrupted Melissa's original plan to go out for dinner. Having just passed the interview, she decided to invite Albert to celebrate together. Albert looked at her frustrated expression and immediately comforted her. Don't you know how to cook, Chef Oswin, since going out is inconvenient? How about we eat at home and have hot pot? My friend just brought me some authentic hot pot base from my hometown. Let's try it together. His words instantly made Melissa's frown disappear. I was just worrying the other day that the hot pot bases here aren't authentic. Albert, you're simply the best. Then I'll also make my specialty braised spare ribs for you while I'm at it. Great, then I'll take care of washing the dishes. The two of them got right to work. So they walked together under an umbrella to the supermarket to buy some essential hot pot ingredients. When passing by a puddle, a jeep drove by, its wheels splashing muddy water. Albert instinctively pulled Melissa, who was walking on the outer side, into his arms. Look out! In an instant, the distance between the two became close enough to touch. Their noses lightly brushed against each other. Melissa could even catch the faint scent of woody perfume on him. This was Melissa's first time seeing him so close up, and she couldn't help but notice how incredibly long his eyelashes were. She became completely entranced. Albert was blushing furiously, too embarrassed to look at her yet unwilling to push her away. Melissa. Finally, he called out softly. Melissa only then realized what she had just done, so she suppressed her pounding heart and quickly changed the subject. The supermarket is just ahead. Let's hurry up or the rain will get heavier. Albert remained silent, simply following her while holding the umbrella for her. He began to feel somewhat grateful that his own umbrella had broken before they left. By the time they returned from the supermarket, the rain had completely stopped. The two of them walked leisurely down the road, carrying a large bag of groceries. It was quite pleasant, when suddenly, an all too familiar figure at the apartment entrance caught her eye. Melissa, the smile on her lips gradually faded away. She could never have imagined who would be the one most eager to find her. It would be Benedict. He actually came looking for her. The meticulous Albert naturally noticed her unease. Glancing at Benedict not far away, he instinctively shielded her. Before seeing Melissa, Benedict was filled with anticipation, but upon noticing a man beside her, Benedict's expression immediately turned extremely unpleasant. As he approached and clearly saw Albert's face, his anger reached its peak. He quickly strode forward, but Albert, noticing his movement, immediately blocked him. Who are you? I should be the one asking you that. Who are you? The intercepted Benedict was furious, yet he remained mindful of Melissa's presence beside him. Thus, he struggled to suppress his emotions. Albert ignored his deliberate provocation and instead turned to look at Melissa. Melissa, do you know this person? Melissa nodded. Should I take you home now? Albert's eyes carried a hint of concern. It's fine, let's go, don't pay attention to him. Melissa lifted her foot, ready to leave. Melissa, can we talk? Benedict immediately said. Melissa's footsteps paused at his words. Albert now roughly guessed the relationship between the two. Looking at him, if we don't clarify things, it might get even more troublesome. Why don't you talk to him? I'll wait for you up ahead. Okay. Seeing her agreement, Albert took the items from her hands and walked a short distance away to wait. Throughout their entire exchange, neither of them glanced at Benedict. As if he were merely an insignificant passerby, she turned to face him. Benedict, there's nothing left for us to say to each other. Since you've chosen Molly, stop dwelling on the past. Melissa's voice was cold and distant. It sent a shiver through his heart. It had been quite some time since he last had a proper conversation with her. In his memory, Melissa had always spoken to him with gentle warmth. Benedict had never seen her so indifferent before. Melissa, I know I was wrong before, for not recognizing you in time. Can you forgive me? I know you might still be bothered by what happened between me and Molly. She has already received the punishment she deserved. I've investigated everything she did to you and made sure she paid back double. Let's be together properly from now on, okay? I've missed you so much. Benedict's tone was humble, and his voice trembled uncontrollably. He was truly remorseful. But from the day he learned the truth, it felt as if something was missing in his heart. After waiting so many days, there was finally Melissa's message. He just wanted to see her as soon as possible. Benedict's eyes were filled with eagerness. Melissa didn't speak immediately, instead quietly gazing back at him. For some reason, her gaze made Benedict feel inexplicably guilty. Benedict had no choice but to avert his gaze, not daring to look at her any longer. After a few minutes, Melissa finally spoke slowly, saying, Benedict, you know, I've liked you since high school. The days I spent with you are the most unforgettable memories of my life. They were so beautiful that they almost felt unreal. I always hoped you would recognize me by instinct, or that you would give me even a minute to explain, but that didn't happen. Now I've made up my mind. Let bygones be bygones. Melissa, Benedict was at a loss. He wanted to explain but didn't know where to begin. His lips moved slightly, yet no complete sentence came out. Benedict, the moment I decided to let you go was the moment I stopped regretting. I loved you, but I don't anymore. There's no possibility for us now. So please don't look for me again, okay? Melissa turned and walked away without hesitation. Benedict watched her retreating figure heading toward Albert, a wave of remorse washing over him. Before coming to Australia, he had imagined countless scenarios in his mind. As long as Melissa would return to him, he was willing to do anything. But now she stood before him, telling him she no longer loved him. Benedict's heart felt as if it had plunged into an ice cellar, leaving him with nothing but an unbearable chill. From that moment on, Melissa never saw Benedict again. Rumors said he sold his company, and no one ever heard of his whereabouts again. Mrs. Oswin later tried to contact her, but Melissa said nothing and simply returned the parental relationship termination document they had sent her. To say it didn't affect her would be a lie, but Melissa had no intention of having any further contact with them. After all, to her, it was all something from a very, very long time ago. A year later, Melissa had her own small studio. There are also a few like-minded good friends by my side, although it's more exhausting than when I was at the company. But she has realized her long-held dream. Her heart is filled with nothing but infinite satisfaction. On the first day after the studio was established, she followed the usual routine and prepared to invite Albert to celebrate. But when she knocked on the door, there was no response. So she started calling him, dialing several times in a row, but Albert didn't answer. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a news alert. A black Pagani had been rear-ended due to speeding. The driver died on the spot. Melissa's heart instantly clenched. Albert's 25th birthday gift was a black Pagani. Without stopping to look closely, Melissa immediately took a taxi and rushed to the accident scene at top speed. She had never felt so panicked in her heart before. At every traffic light, she kept praying silently in her mind. She saw the police had already set up a perimeter around the area. Melissa wanted to rush over to check but was stopped. She immediately explained that the car owner was someone she knew and wanted to go take a look. The police asked her what their relationship was. Melissa immediately said it was her lover. Hearing her answer, the police were somewhat confused and showed her the car owner's identity information for confirmation. The photo showed a man in his 60s, a drug dealer whose sudden heart attack had caused the car accident. Melissa's heart instantly relaxed, and she collapsed to the ground in relief. After receiving the police call, Albert was completely baffled. By the time he arrived, the black Pagani lying wrecked nearby was nowhere to be seen. Only then did he suddenly realize the truth. Albert reached out and pulled Melissa into his arms. "Don't be afraid, Melissa, I'm here to pick you up." Tearfully, Melissa immediately complained upon seeing him. "Where on earth have you been? I've been looking for you forever. I was so worried about you. I went to prepare a surprise for you. I was planning to confess to you today." "Is the confession spot in my office?" Melissa said with a sob. "How did you know?" "Because I have surveillance." Albert patted his own head, realizing he had overlooked this point. She had actually noticed it long ago, but kept quiet to preserve the surprise. "So are you willing or not?" Albert said as he pulled out the ring from his pocket. Melissa looked somewhat surprised. "Isn't this a confession? Why is there a ring?" His firm tone made her cry again. Melissa felt both touched and happy in her heart. "Then I'll have to think carefully about it." "All right, take your time to think." Sunlight filtered through the shadows of nearby trees, evenly spilling over Albert's body. Melissa could only feel the missing piece in her heart slowly growing back. And Albert is precisely the indispensable ray of sunshine.